Welcome to the Hall of Fame edition of the Yellow Jacket Experience. Joining me now for another edition is Cindy Tatro, women's soccer goalkeeper from 1998 through the 2000 season, who still has her name all over AIC's record books and now can add Hall of Fame to that resume. Cindy, how you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing great. It's great to have you on here today on the podcast and to get a chance to talk to you about a team that I've had the good fortune to work with in my 15 years here at AIC. But before we get to your time at AIC, let's get to how you got to be a soccer player in the first place. What first made you want to play soccer, and specifically wanting to play goal?
So my dad actually used to play in like an older man league that we used to go watch games like when we were really little on like Sunday mornings. And that kind of sparked my interest, but my parents really didn't get us into sports. It was really not on their mindset, right? So I think if I can recall correctly, I pretty much harassed my mother. I started late, like 10 years old. I think that was the first time I played soccer. And she finally caved, threw me in a soccer league. And I think it was my first year. I was never a goalie to start. I was a field player. And, I remember going to one random game and when we needed a goalie. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Apparently I did pretty well because I kind of lost my field position and they stuck me in goal from that point forward. And it just went from there. And obviously the love of the game grew from that point on, with all the success that I had. So that's in a nutshell, very quick. I've never had relatives that played. So it was just like my dad that I would see just randomly playing kind of sparked the interest.
It does always seem like the goalkeeper is sort of the person who gets stuck with it. But you made the most out of it, which is usually how it ends up working. That would have been right around the time of the first Women's World Cup, would it not have been? How important?
It wasn't really publicized then. That was like, I didn't really start getting any media attention till when I was in high school, college, the Mia Hamm era. And that just watching that group of women just made it, just inspired me so much. I literally in high school was like, I'm going to be a goalkeeper for the national team. That's my goal legitimately. So just by watching them, pave the way for the rest of us females to go out there and kick some tail, that I wanted to be a part of that.
You mentioned Mia Hamm. Were there any other players that you particularly looked up to that you wanted to emulate?
Well, I mean, you would think a goalkeeper, right? Brianna Scurry was the big goalkeeper at that point. Yeah. I just was enthralled with the whole team, like the way they worked together, Michelle Akers being the beast that she was, it was just the way they were like, fine, you're not going to pay attention to us. We're going to make a name for ourselves. We're going to push these women to the top pedestal, in that big World Cup game where there was like 70,000 people there. That was an eye opener. So it really isn't just one person. I mean, Mia Hamm obviously was the one that all little girls looked up to, myself included, even though I never scored goals. It was just the fact that they were just such unbelievable role models. I mean, you had like 3 or 4 women on that team that had children and they were still going out there at a high level. And that's just so inspirational, it's especially to somebody, who's going through high school and really enjoyed the game. And it's like, Jesus Christ, if she can do that. And, she's got 3 kids, then why can't I do that? So it really, I think that group is the one that kind of opened up everything for girls soccer, women's soccer for sure.
Yeah. That 1999 team, it's still kind of the peak example of great women's soccer teams. And that's what the U.S. winning 2 World Cups since. Yeah. Now, AIC itself, you didn't start out at AIC. You transferred in. What made you make that decision that AIC was the place for you?
So it's a kind of funny story because in high school, Pete Carando was heavily recruiting me. Like, I think these days they would call it probably stalking. Okay. He just called my house every night, like when I was a senior in high school. And, I'm like, listen, I was raised in a single family home. My mother worked sometimes 3 jobs just to allow us to do the things that we were able to do, which obviously I owe her everything. But I couldn't pay for college. It would have been a struggle for me. It was either shoot for the best scholarship that I could or go to a local school. And I know Division II schools didn't really do the best with scholarships. So, I had a couple of Division I scholarships offered. I took the best one, which is University of New Hampshire, just because, at the end of the day, I didn't have the money to pay for college, and neither did my mother. So I went that route. Now, I am an extreme homebody. Like, I'm extremely attached to my family. I mean, the furthest I ever was away longer than 2 days was maybe 2 hours from my mother and my sisters and all that. So being like 3 hours away from them and living in a different state when I was at New Hampshire, I think I suffered that whole first semester. It was really tough for me. Plus, I had started on every single soccer team that I ever played for at a high level. And, I was a freshman coming in. I guess I had crazy expectations that I would just jump right in and get the starting job. Well, that didn't happen. And there was actually a sophomore goalkeeper ahead of me, which, thinking back, I'm like, Jesus Christ, the possible chance that I have to start would be my senior year. And that just wasn't okay for me. I wasn't keen on sitting there in the sidelines and watching somebody else play, because I wanted to play, right? And then the last thing is, they took the enjoyment. Division I is a lot different beast. It's like, it's a job. You're traveling like 8 hours away for games. You have to have tutors to keep up with things. And, it was just, it took the fun out of playing soccer for me. So it was a culmination of reasons. So, it was a friend of mine that actually was in touch with Pete right after the first semester, after the first fall season at UNH, and said, hey, she's pretty miserable over there. Is this still an offer for her to come home? And so Pete and I started talking at that point, and he basically begged, borrowed, and stole as much money as he could so that they could put a scholarship together for me so that I can attend AIC. So that's pretty much, I left after the fall. I only lasted one semester there. That's how miserable I was. And so I trained with them in the spring, AIC. I couldn't play, obviously, because I needed to sit out a year. So that's why I only played 3 years at AIC. I wish I was able to play 4. In hindsight, I probably would have made a different move. But the 3 years I got were probably one of the 3 most enjoyable years playing soccer. So in a nutshell, that's basically how it came to be.
And that first year that you got to play, 1998 season, a magical run. You win the NE10 regular season title for the first time in school history. You get the call, the NCAAs for the first time in school history. Was there a point during the season where it kind of hit you like, wow, we've got something special here?
It's funny because I a little bit of a reservation going into AIC soccer was their prior records. They just were not successful, and so I had to kind of swallow that pride a little bit and take that on. And at that point, I didn't know who was on the team. I just knew they had a really great goal scorer and Amanda Mateus. That's pretty much all I knew. And then, as I'm going into the fall season, I go to one, I think it was one of our meetings before preseason, and I see Kristen Patterson there. And I was like, hey, I played her in high school and she's not easy to play against. So this looks promising, and then I also had somebody else I played against high school, Mary Pupa, so there was a lot of talent that I saw sitting in there for our first meeting. And I'm like, this could go somewhere, so once we started working together, I mean, that first year was amazing. I mean, I think we ranked number 10 in the nation for Division II, which is, fantastic. But we all fed off each other. I had this amazing sweeper in front of me, Nicole Sullivan. We all just got together. I mean, we were a very young team, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Everybody did their part. Nobody was a freshman, and we didn't look at each other that way. We were like, hey, we have something here. Let's work hard and do what we can to build on that. And so, the rest of the season just played out because we were all very focused and hoping that we could do something. And we obviously made the run to the tournament, but Franklin Pierce was a nemesis. But yeah, so we all just fed off each other. It was probably one of the most fun and best seasons that I think I've had.
sometimes it can be tough to have that much talent in one place. Everybody wants to be the hero. And you mentioned a bunch of the names. You are the fifth person from that team to go into our Hall of Fame. What was it that allowed everybody who all this talent, first of all, what allowed it all to come together in one place, and what kept you guys together and focused on the big picture, as opposed to maybe sometimes you see teams with that much talent and 5 individuals as opposed to a team?
Well, I mean, I think I kind of touched on that,
Yeah.
I think we saw what the ability was for us, the first couple games, I think we took them pretty easy and we're like, huh, I did not expect it. I really expected to get my ass beaten, those first couple games, because that's what AIC had been before, and so we again, we really kind of focused on, what we could do as a group versus, oh, I came from this Division I school, I'm going to be the superstar. Nobody felt like that. I mean, Kristen Patterson was an amazing athlete. I mean, she was probably the star of the team that year, but she never acted like it. You know what I mean? Like, it was all, what can we do to help each other succeed? And obviously most teams that have a lot of success are like that. And so it was everybody, just like, nothing was ever talked about. We just were like, all right, let's feed off each other. Cindy will make a great save, so Kristen, kind of inspires Kristen to go score another goal, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's help each other out. Let's build each other up. And that's pretty much that whole season what that was about. I think we kind of surprised ourselves, to be honest with you, but it just worked. Everything just clicked. It was no drama. It was wonderful.
Working together as a team, obviously that's the ultimate thing, but it never hurts to get some individual accolades and get recognized for what you've done. You earned NE10 goalie of the year, not once, but twice in your 3 seasons. What was that like to get recognized in that fashion, just to kind of have somebody say, you're the best of the best in this conference, which has always been a very good one?
I mean, obviously, anytime you get an award, it's very honorable. I mean, obviously, I'm very thankful for my natural ability, I guess, for some awards, but I forgot that I actually got those until you just said it. You know what I mean? So I don't look back and be like, oh, I did, that's just not how I'm wired. I don't have a good memory with that stuff. I just look back and just think about, how blessed I am to have played this game and to be successful in it as much as I was. Obviously, there was a lot of really terrible losses, which athletes go through. But I don't really focus on, what I did in terms of, accolades. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think I got the MVP one year, and I think my kid pointed out the trophy that was in the basement, like, what's this? And I'm like, oh shit, forgot that was there. That's just not how I am, so I don't focus on that. And I try to kind of do that, promote that to my kids as well, because they see other kids getting awards and they get bummed out. I'm like, listen, it's not about your name on a paper or a trophy. That's not what it's about. It's what about experience you went through, what you got out of it, and so hopefully they're taking that approach, but it's still early.
So let's go off the soccer pitch for a little bit. Your time at AIC, you majored in criminal justice. So what attracted you to that field as a thing that you wanted to study?
Honestly, it was kind of a crapshoot. You go in as a freshman and they're like, well, what do you want to major in? And it's like, well, how are you going to know as a 20-year-old what you want to do for the rest of your life? It seemed the most appealing to me. And I was told that it is the most transferable and different. I think I minored in psychology too. So yeah. At first I wanted to become a police officer in that, but then I'm like, maybe an attorney. I actually almost went to law school after, and I decided against that. It was actually one of the professors that talked me out of it. He's like, you don't want to have that long. But as I got into the studies, I was like, wow, this is pretty intriguing. I did like an internship as a probation officer, figured out quick that that's not what I wanted. So when I left, it was really, I never even actually pursued much in the criminal justice field because, I wasn't really passionate about it. I really kind of left college not really knowing what I wanted to do. But, at the end of the day, I got a great job, and in 20 something years later, I'm pretty successful at it. So I guess the cards fell in the right place.
So how have you used what you learned from those programs and that time at AIC in your career?
I had some struggles, with different, different courses, and, yeah, everybody goes through the failures, and I guess how I picked myself up from that, like, I'll give you an example, not even AIC, but at UNH, I struggled tremendously. I've always been an A/B student my entire life, and I went to UNH and just everything was miserable. I think I failed like 4 classes, and my mom was just like, whoa, what's going on here? We have to talk. I think even the transition into Springfield was a little bit similar, but I guess I might have had a wake up call and be like, listen, I want to keep playing soccer. I gotta step it up, and I never let myself get back down to that level. And I think that's how I use in my career now. I'm very hard on myself. I always have been. So if I have a failure, I get mad at myself. Like, what is wrong with you? Let's pick this up and let's do better. So those are the things that you learn when you're younger. And I think that's my approach now, even the career that I have now, very hard on myself. And I think that's what makes me successful,
It's probably a lot of the goalkeeper mentality too, right?
Maybe.
If anybody else on the field makes a mistake, there's somebody behind them. But
Yeah.
If you make a mistake, it's a goal.
Oh, and I was very hard on myself for every single one of them, even if it was like upper 90s. It didn't matter. Everything was my fault. And I think, honestly, looking back, I think that's what made me, be a little bit successful. I'm not blaming anybody else. I'm blaming myself. I'm taking ownership for everything. So what can I do to fix it? Kind of a mentality.
You brought up a professor that talked you out of going to law school. Is there anybody you remember particular that had a significant impact on you, whether it's in the classroom or even outside of the classroom, that really helped you to be successful in college?
Are you talking academically, or are you talking sports wise?
Academically, but certainly a little bit of both, maybe.
Well, I mean, I did have a Professor Payne. I don't know if she's still there. Is she still there?
She's our faculty athletics representative.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
She's amazing.
I did take a bunch of criminal justice courses with her, and I was very inspired academically with, her successes and how she pushed. It seemed like, she didn't favor me, but she always took the time to, like, kind of in an unofficial way mentor me, and give me advice on things and guide me in the right path, with that. I really admired her for that. She didn't have to go above and beyond with any of that. Athletically, my father, as I got older, once he saw, hey, there's some promise here with this daughter in terms of athletics, he started to pay a little bit more attention. And he did help me in high school, just the mental game on track. But I think a lot of it was self drive athletically. Like I said, I pretty motivated person. So, I would always be out there working extra hard on doing things, after practice, before practice, any other day. We didn't have practice, especially in high school. I was extremely driven.
We talked about the impact that the 1999 U.S. women's soccer team had on you and on everybody really in that time. And nowadays, just very recently, they announced a new collective bargaining agreement for the women's soccer team at equal pay with the men, which the men's team was also pushing for, which was nice to see. As somebody who played the game, back then when they were really just starting to get the international attention, what does it mean to you to see that happen now that the women's team is going to get the pay they deserve for the success that they've had?
Well, it's about damn time. Like, what the hell? Like I said, that 99 team paved the way, right? The current group that really kind of did the nitty gritty work. Obviously, they have a lot of credit in it too, but women's athletics been, pushed down for so many years. And the fact that these women, the groups from 99 until now, they pushed and pushed and pushed for something that was obviously well overdue. It's so inspiring. I don't have a little girl, but if I did have a little girl, I would constantly be like, I even talk to my boys about it, like, this is what it used to be like. And they're like, what, really? These women are creating all the revenue and they're not getting paid? I'm like, unfortunately, it is how it is, because I want them to learn that, we're all equals, it doesn't matter. And I think showing them that, and, even these women are inspiring my young boys, you know what I mean? So it's so awesome. I couldn't be any happier for those those women now, finally. They're great role models for sure.
Well, it's phenomenal. I don't miss a game, I'll tell you that, and I know a lot of
Yeah.
people that don't. And it's sort of funny because they're really the only soccer that most Americans watch. It's usually just the women's world, even the men, because the men haven't
Yeah.
had a lot of success. What is it other than just the fact that they win? Do you think that gets people to want to watch it? And maybe how do we get more people into the sport? Because soccer is such a wonderful sport, but it definitely is kind of the fifth wheel.
So, what's funny is I enjoy watching men as well. I prefer to watch the women for obvious reasons, right? But
Mhm.
I have always watched the men also. And so I've had this, my husband now was my boyfriend all through college, and he was really never into soccer. And, he watched every college game that he could for me. And then I went on to play, the Women's Pioneers and Summer League, and he'd go watch as much as he could, right? And I'd be like, you're not a soccer guy. Why are you so interested in watching soccer? Thinking maybe he wants to see all the girls running around. But he's like, listen, watching girls soccer is so much more enjoyable than watching men's soccer because, you touch a man and he falls on the professional soccer pitch, right? But women, I mean, like tackling them and they're just bouncing right back up, right? So it's just a cleaner game, and you appreciate that hard, nose fight out there. And, ever since he said it to me, I'm like, I started paying more attention to that. I'm like, it's just a more natural game. The men are obviously much faster. They have athletic ability that women don't have, but the game for the women's side is just more clean. It's more natural skill. It's not flopping. It's not dirty tackles. It's, obviously they'll have their share of that, but it's just so much more refreshing to watch, more natural soccer, I think, personally.
Yeah, I've always felt that same exact way. And I always go back to the 2015 World Cup. But you probably remember, because I'm sure you watched it too, the semifinal was against Brazil. Abby Wambach got knocked upside the head and then obviously scores the big goal in the extra time. Just what a tremendous role model she is for
inspiring.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. Yeah.
Now, our own soccer team here at AIC, since your group that got the first NCAA tournament berth has made the NCAAs 4 additional times, including 2013 when they went to the Final Four. It's been 6 years though since the last NCAA appearance. We have a new head coach, Stephanie Gordon, taking over, the first woman to be head coach at AIC for women's soccer. As somebody who's now going into our Hall of Fame, as somebody who did it so well, what kind of message do you have for Coach Gordon for the current group of athletes here at AIC?
So, I mean, I guess what they're looking at right now is the struggle that we were looking at when my group started when we went in. I mean, they obviously it's only a few years that they've had some unsuccess, right? But ours was a lot longer. So, you definitely can't go in like I did, like, oh crap, I'm going into a stinky team and we're going to get our butts kicked and it's just not going to be fun, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to be showing up that first day to kind of like change that approach. You know what I mean? Like, as long as the groups come together and they have good coaching and, and inspiring leaders, you never know what's going to happen. So you can't go in with that mindset. You definitely have to have a positive mindset. And obviously, they'll have success again. There's no doubt about it. It's a great program. People we're going to want to keep signing up and going to AIC for sure.
The last question, and this is the one we always save for last with everybody throughout this season of the podcast. What was it like for you getting that phone call, hey, you're going into the AIC Hall of Fame?
So it's actually kind of funny because I'm sitting here working at my computer, and I was having a really crappy work day, and I get a number from a Springfield call, and I'm like, it's another telemarketer. But for some reason, normally I don't pick those up, but for some reason I'm like, let me just pick this up. And she called and she said that, and I was like, wow. I didn't even, to be honest, I heard mentioned, I actually saw Pete Carando maybe 3 or 4 years ago at Dick's Sporting Good. And he's like, hey, you know that Nicole Sullivan had made the Hall of Fame? And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I didn't even know there was a Hall of Fame, to be honest with you. So, he's like, yeah, we're going to push to get you in. And I'm like, it is what it is, but it's truly an honor to be, obviously selected for this. It's such a great honor. any success I had was obviously had a lot to do with the 4 others that are now in there too, as well as other teammates. You know, you can't obviously, not everybody's going to make the Hall of Fame, but I am extremely grateful for this consideration. And, you know, it kind of makes up for the fact that I can barely walk now from all the diving. So I guess I appreciate it very much.
Well, it's certainly very well deserved. I know when I was doing the research into putting the questions for you together, looking at your numbers, I just kept going, wow. Like how was
I just wish I had that 4th season to kind of add on to that.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's you may never have left first in anything in the record book if you had that 4th year, looking at the numbers you put up in the 3 that you did have. But Cindy, it is phenomenal talking to you. Really appreciate you taking the time with us today. Congratulations on an honor that's a long time coming and very well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Cindy Tatro from our women's soccer team, class of 2001, and now an AIC Hall of Famer. Keep your eyes peeled for more episodes of the Yellow Jacket Experience all summer long, as we're going to have plenty more of our Hall of Famers to talk to over the course of this season.